Cricket teams face off against each other to lift the inaugural Hollywood Bets Pro 50 and Pro 20 trophies. Local pride is at stake with the log table taking shape. Waza nawe! Get down to a stadium near you and show your support. Visit cricket.co.za for more information. Entrance to Hollywood Bets Pro Series matches is free.
Get a true AI business partner from Vodacom Business when you get the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,599 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 349 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together, Vodacom Business.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Now, the South African National Taxi Council, Santaco CEO Abner Tsebe, has promised South Africans that they will prioritize safe travels for the upcoming Easter period. He says that driver fatigue remains one of the major issues with taxi drivers during this period. He said that the driver fatigue is a silent killer, and they are urging all long-distance taxi drivers to rest and to stay healthy and fit in order to do so. And this as the 2025 Easter season Road Safety Arrive Alive campaign is currently underway. Let's hear from the Santaco president.
With a safety campaign, which is crucial initiative aimed at safeguarding the lives of all those who travel across our beautiful country. As we reflect on the past year for us as Santaco, the taxi industry, we are acutely aware of the devastating impact that road accidents have had. We've learned, we've seen, and it's unacceptable, particularly in provinces, for example, like the Eastern Cape and KZN, Gauteng as well, and Mpumalanga to Limpopo, people going to various activities. So tragically, we have witnessed the loss of countless lives, Minister, and we agree. Some may argue that could have been preventable. And I think we need to start doing an approach of we must be proactive than reactive. One of the leading contributors to these accidents, Minister, for the taxi industry has been the driver fatigue. We would understand that during this time, it's rush hours, drivers will be forced to do 2-3 trips from one side. For example, a trip going to Limpopo, a driver will travel from Johannesburg to Limpopo, come back and take another load because the rank will be full. So people, they will be looking for transport, and sometimes it compromises this, which this remains a serious concern, not just for our industry, but for all road users. That is why, Minister, starting tomorrow as Santaco, we are ramping up our efforts with the taxi industry and our colleagues to ensure that safety takes precedence over everything else. Because the work begins with the long weekend, and we will be targeting the major long-distance taxi ranks, because we need to address the problem where it starts. We must not only wait for roadblocks, because sometimes it compromises even the users. You will find that the taxi is impounded and the users are suffering on the road. So there are a number of initiatives that we will be doing, engaging with different stakeholders to assist us so that we can carry out the checks to ensure that all vehicles are compliant with the necessary regulations. I've seen some of the guys and the stakeholders that can assist us, and we've already alluded to that, Minister.
And that was Santaco CEO Abner Tsebe. Unfortunately, we were unable to get an update on that meeting of the Santaco leadership and the Eastern Cape Transport MEC Xoli Nqaka. But do stay tuned to SABC News, and hopefully there will be updates on that. And with that, it is 1 o'clock. So as promised, Bramoro, this one for Utsile Sako, says, I wonder why Utsile Sako hasn't yet won the newscaster of the year here for SAFM Radio. Listening to him is like hearing your favorite music on repeat. So, for your favorite music on repeat, here's Utsile Saku with your latest news at 1.
Thanks, Sakina, and Bramoro as well. Top stories at 1 o'clock. President Ramaphosa keen on mending SA-US relations, and manhunt launched for suspects in Johannesburg taxi rank shooting. Good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa is keen to see an end to the current diplomatic stalemate between South Africa and the US. That's according to his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, who briefed the media at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Magwenya's statement follows America's expulsion of South Africa's ambassador to the country, Ibrahim Rasool. This after Rasool accused US President Donald Trump of leading a global white supremacist movement. Magwenya says the president will not send a delegation to the US to explain South Africa's policy on land.
What we will do, as I've just done now, is to continue correcting distortions where those distortions are being reported from an official level out of the United States. Parallel to that, as I've said, the President is leading that intensification of engagements with the Trump administration to ensure that we are able to engage at the right level and we are able to iron out whatever differences that may exist. But yes, it is a concern that the state of the relationship is where it is, and it is a focus of the President to work towards improving the state of the relationship.
At the same time, the Solidarity Movement says nearly 70,000 Afrikaners have expressed interest in relocating to the US under President Donald Trump's refugee offer. The South African Chamber of Commerce in the US has formally submitted the details of over 67,000 South Africans to the US Embassy in Pretoria. This follows Trump's executive order making refugee status for Afrikaners a priority. Jaco Kleinhans is head of international relations at the Solidarity Movement.
We must understand that there will probably be a much smaller number of people who will at the end qualify for this status to move to America. But I think there was a general interest simply for the reason that people think that there are good opportunities in maybe moving to America now in terms of economic opportunities. The people who indicated on different platforms that they are interested are in most instances people who are in a difficult economic position, in many instances unemployed.
Gauteng police have launched a manhunt for 6 men suspected to be behind a shooting incident at a taxi rank in Jeppestown, Johannesburg this morning. 4 people were shot and killed and 3 others wounded. 2 of the deceased victims were vendors at the rank. Gauteng police spokesperson Dimakadzo Nebuhuri.
Through our preliminary investigation, it is suspected that this might be taxi violence related, and as the provincial commissioner has already mobilized a dedicated group of detectives who will be investigating this case. It will be investigated by our taxi and violence unit in the provincial office.
The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to announce its interest rate decision in 2 hours' time in Pretoria. The bank cut rates by 25 basis points at its previous meeting in January. This took the repo rate to 7.5% and the prime lending rate to 11%. A low inflationary environment has been the main reason for the past 3 consecutive rate cuts. The rate has remained within the bank's 3 to 6% target range. Laura Campbell, an analyst at ETM Analytics, says while inflation remains low at 3.2%, the bank's decision will be based on both domestic and international risks.
Expect that interest rates will be kept unchanged. Trump's policies and retaliation by other countries is likely to keep inflation globally elevated. And the Reserve Bank will also keep a close eye on interest rate decisions made by the US Fed. The Reserve Bank will want to maintain an attractive interest rate differential with the US to keep rand investments relatively attractive. So overall, if we take these factors into account, it's likely that the Reserve Bank will opt to keep interest rates unchanged.
And finally, further afield, Mexico's Attorney General has criticized the state investigators for their handling of a site that a cartel is suspected to have been using for mass killings. Alejandro Gertz says officials failed to take proper fingerprints or carry out forensic tests at the ranch in Jalisco last September. Activists have described it as an extermination camp. The BBC's Will Grant has the details.
Family members of Mexico's many thousands of disappeared people came across the ranch after a tip-off that there may be a mass grave there, and then to find what they say they found there, which is these 200 shoes, all of these items of clothing, rucksacks, bags, even children's toys, as well as the very, very frightening concept that they found a number of furnaces or ovens and human remains.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa is keen to see an end to the current diplomatic stalemate between South Africa and the US. That's according to his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, who briefed the media at the Union Buildings in Pretoria today. For SFM News, I'm Utsi Lesaku. I'll be back with headlines at 1:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.4 FM in Durban.
It's always, hey, choose my kettle. It's this or that, Baba. But why? Why can't I service my car and pay for my wedding service as well? With a Nedbank personal loan, that's a rhetorical question because I can do both with access of up to 400,000 Rand at the best interest rate that is customized for me.
Don't let cash flow hold you back. Apply for your Nedbank personal loan online today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Slangs and Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle.
Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier.
Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
SAFM, playing your music.
I believe in love. Love reveals just who we are. But in our fear, we may lose out on our star. Love brings us closer while fear tears us apart. Love sets us free, but our fear will keep us frozen. But ooh, I'm a believer. Ooh, I'm a believer. Ooh, I'm a believer.
with Believer. She's actually set to perform in Cape Town. It's her first performance in Cape Town since her recovery from the stroke. I think she's going to be there this coming long weekend. One of these 2 long weekends she's going to be in Cape Town. So looking forward to that. If you happen to be in Cape Town, I'm sure it's going to be an incredible show. I did tell you last year, right, when she celebrated her birthday. She celebrated her 45th birthday at her home with close friends and family. And that's where she first gave us a mini concert before she actually took on to performing again full time. So she's more than ready to show you Cape Townians that she's back and dominating the stage. We've got a lot by way of conversation today. We're going to be unpacking the findings of the PPS Students Confidence Index. We'll find out more as to exactly what the PPS Student Confidence Index speaks to, and it's the Professional Provident Society Student Confidence Index, and they'll be sharing some of those findings for us as well. We'll also are going to be touching on the autistic today. We've got some pages, stages, screens, and more for you. We're touching base with the CEO and Artistic Director of Dance for All South Africa. The other thing that we're going to be looking at today is advocacy for mental health. It is Human Rights Day, of course, and we know that we are going to have all kinds of festivities, especially those centered around Constitution Hill. So we'll get to touch base with some advocates in as far as that is concerned. And then on the other side of today, we're having a different kind of finance conversation, how to take the guilty out of life's guilty pleasures. That's coming out on the other side of 2 o'clock. Hey, apparently we still fare quite decently in the World Index of Happiness. Apparently we're still happy people, given everything that we are going through. It's gone 1:15 o'clock. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points, but Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT ladies versus Copperbelt ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM commemorates Human Rights Month. We are all responsible for the protection of our rights. SAFM, leading the conversation. Living your best life on the Full Circle. Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, getting into our first conversation with Mutsabi Nomvete, the head of technical marketing at PPS. So South African students say that the system that is meant to prepare them for the working world is actually failing them. And the latest Professional Provident Society PPS Student Confidence Index shows that financial strain, mental health struggles, and of course a lack of career preparedness is denting the aspirations of students. How are you doing this afternoon, Mutsabi?
I'm very good, thanks, Bridget. And you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I guess firstly, let's just get a bit of background and context as to the Professional Provident Society Confidence Index and exactly, what this measures and gauges.
Yes, sure. PPS, as you've said, we are a professional organization offering financial solutions to graduate professionals. What do we mean by graduate professionals? That's really people who have an honors level or above or equivalent studies. So the typical careers that we look at or professions that we look into or that we work with is doctors, your attorneys, accountants, so people who have achieved at least an honors level qualification. Why is this important? At least the survey itself, why do we do that? Is that one, we believe in the value that professionals can bring to the SA economy, the environment, helping us to solve for our problems. And obviously, professionals don't just come from nowhere. They start through going to university. So we also have what we call the Student Confidence Index, which is where we track the sentiment of our students who are aspiring to be the future graduate professionals. And it's really a sense of where are they? How are they feeling about the country as a whole? How are they feeling about the economy, socioeconomic stuff? And also how do they feel about finances? And we've been running these studies since 2015. So we've got good data, I think a good track record, good data, and it's interesting to see how it does change, how the trends are changing. And that's why we do it, to really just keep in touch with them with the hope of, one, understanding them, and two, hopefully starting the conversations to be able to see where do they need help and what can we as a country, as organizations, as society and the community do to help and equip them.
Speaking of the trends, right? So from 2015 to now, 2025, have you noticed some persistent trends, both positive and negative, or just a sort of persistent pattern that comes out from the survey?
They're very interesting ones. The first one that I'd like to highlight is entrepreneurship. When we first started with this, entrepreneurship was they were not even thinking about it at all. It hardly featured, was not important, because back then it was about go to university, get a job, happiness. Now, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen a big shift towards entrepreneurship, and they're saying, I would definitely see that as a career option. And that tells you the maturity of our students, that they can see that they can't rely on somebody hiring them or employing them. They need to be the creators of that. So that's a good one, in the sense that they are seeing the opportunities there. But having said that, they do need support with that. How do they, a lot of the feedback we get is they're not trained. So they don't know even. It sounds, yes, they know they need to become entrepreneurs, become self-reliant and be able to even hire other people, but they don't have the skills for that. And the skills go beyond just funding. People tend to think challenges of entrepreneurship is only limited to funding, but it's not. In there comes mentorship. In there comes, how do you structure this business of yours? If you're going to start that and all of that. So that's coming through. It's a good trend, but it does need support. Another one that we've seen is immigration. That one, it's an interesting one to track because it changes quite often. During certain periods, immigration will be all the buzz. As soon as I get a chance to get out of here, I'm out of here. Goodbye, South Africa. And then every once in a while to be like, no, I'm hanging around. So the last stats have actually shown us that people are saying, I'm going to hang around. I want to be part of solutions. In solving all the problems we have in South Africa. The good news, though, with immigration especially, is that a lot of them, even when it does peak, it often is, I'm young, I've got no commitments here, let me go explore the world, let me go widen my horizons. But a lot of them have this thing that I will always still want to come back home. The time now allows me to, but they don't see there's something permanent. So that's quite an interesting one to see. And then another interesting one is, again, in the past, it was like, I want to work somewhere and I want to work in a public institution. And many of the SOEs being named as the place to be. And now we're seeing that becoming less and less. I think they're starting to question that. Is that really where I want to build my career?
Very interesting. I mean, listen, and this is why we have such conversations, because I think even the powers that be here would have a vested interest in that last spot, right?
Oh, for sure. That one was, I must say, I had a good chuckle. I was like, oh, wow, how things change. And I'm probably sorry, just the last one, an important one. And I see you are having a conversation on this later. The one that has also ticked up quite a lot, though, is the one on mental health. That is becoming a bigger and bigger concern. in a way, that's a good thing that we are starting to talk. That we do need help. We're identifying what those triggers are. We're understanding that you don't need to go at this alone, but it is a growing concern, and it's again something we need to look at as society, as universities and institutions, to say, how do we try to fill that gap so that students don't experience this necessarily, and that when they do, there is proper support, and again, especially, how do we destigmatize it? To say it's okay to not be okay, but then where do you go for help, etc. So that's one also, a few years ago when we started with this thing, it hardly featured. Now we're actually seeing quite an increase on that. So that's something concerning, but we do need to see then what are the solutions and how do we help there.
You know, what I love about this information, Mutsabi, is that it's helpful in the sense that it allows those who are already in positions to help students, or those who create opportunities for students outside of graduation, to start honing in and, you know, figuring out the necessary answers. Because when we talk about, as you've rightfully pointed out, when we talk about entrepreneurship and fostering more young entrepreneurs, innovative entrepreneurs in the country, we then look to this kind of data to say, well, what are the other sort of substantiating questions that are associated underneath this umbrella, or underneath this theme, that would make that experience better and ensure success and sustainability for those entering it? Even likewise, when we laugh at, you know, they sort of aspirations to come into the public sector by way of coming into SOEs. For me, that tells me that, one, they recognize that there is opportunity and gap there. They recognize that they might even have solutions to a lot of the problems that SOEs face, but their reluctance then to also come into the space, or their change of mind down the line, should also be something that SOEs should reflect upon themselves. Because if you want to attract young talent and young professionals and young innovation and technology, you need to listen to what they are saying about, I would work for you, however, because of A, B, C, D, and E, I'm now hesitant.
That's very true. And that is why we do this, because there's no point solutioning what we think the solution should be. We need to ask the people who are directly impacted and affected to say, what will make this better? What will keep you here? So, for example, if you go to the immigration example, we need to be asking ourselves questions. What do we need to do? And like I said, this is a collective effort. So it's not one industry's problem or one organization's problem. All of us need to think and say, what are the little things? And sometimes it is the littlest of things that make people to make the decision to stay or to go, as an example. And those are the conversations we want to really encourage. Those are the conversations we want to be a part of, so that young people can say that there is a whole system behind me, supporting me. What is the problem?
When we focus on the mental health element that's now strongly coming up, and this is very important to this new sort of generation of Gen Zs. It's something that frequently comes up. What are they saying, or what have been some of the answers to the questions around, from their perspective, what should be done by either universities and institutions of higher learning, as well as private organizations, just to support them and ease them into a seamless transition from higher education into the professional world?
Look, the big thing is, firstly, when they are in tertiary, the biggest thing that keeps them up at night and causes mental anxiety and distress is funding as a whole. Because a lot of our students do rely on external sources of funding, so outside of mom and dad and the family environment, and not having the stability and the peace of mind of knowing that my fees will be paid, I am okay, I only need to worry about my academics. That's a big thing, because we also find that when there is funding, it's partial, it's late, there's all sorts of problems. And, students, any human is a whole being. So to think, okay, I've paid just for your academics, go forth and conquer, you can't do that on an empty stomach, for example. So that is a huge, huge thing that keeps them up at night. The transition from secondary school to tertiary does also cause some levels of anxiety, because, we baby the kids all the way through to matric, and then suddenly it's like, there you go, off to university, go make it happen. And nobody really tells them or helps them to know what's coming when they're in university, and how do they actually settle in without, I mean, you can choose not to go to your lectures. It probably will not end well, but there is a mom and dad to kind of like take you to school and make sure you are kind of like there. If you go, you go. You don't, you don't. So it's little things, but they really can catch them off guard and completely unsettle them and completely turn their world around. So it's little basic things like that. Financial literacy has also come in. Now suddenly those who are fortunate to, even if you don't have a lot of money, because money is relative, but even if you get some sort of a stipend or a bursary or whatever, how do you split this money to be able to look after yourself? Because that's also something, a skill that's not taught. So do you blow it all on the first day and then, oopsie, you hope for the best? Nobody takes you through that. We think these things happen naturally. But until somebody says you need to sit down, you need to have a budget. That's what a budget means. How are you going to empower yourself, all of that. When are you sitting with this money, however little or a lot it is, it's overwhelming. And bad decisions or good decisions can come out of that with or without the guidance. Then once they go through university and now they're ready for to enter the job market, new challenges come. How do I write my CV? That is a big thing. We think people know, and yes, there's all sorts of tools, but that too, sometimes too much information can lead to anxiety and a feeling of being overwhelmed. So how do I write my CV? How do I show up for an interview? What kind of questions will they ask me, and how do I answer that? How do I practice those things? Because I've never sat in front of in a boardroom in a room full of people with suits on, all serious, and they're asking me questions that determine my future. How do I deal with that? And then even I always, with the youngsters especially, I joke and say, you need someone who will tell you, yes, you can use this kind of language on social media. When you enter the real working world, there's a tone that we use. There's certain words that we use and don't use. And then suddenly they find themselves, now they land the job, but then they find themselves being always on the wrong end of the stick because nobody is, so it's all the little things, but they matter so much because that determines how you settle in, how you are received and accepted, and then you start questioning yourself. There's something wrong with me. I was this A student, but I'm really struggling to fit in. And it's those things. So what they're asking for is mentorship. Talk me through these things. Have someone I can look up to, somebody I can call on to say, I'm sitting with problem X.
Yeah.
Brainstorm some ideas and, and that's how we build.
It's definitely very, very insightful. I think the information that comes out of here, insightful, relevant, and also useful to not only just institutions, but also private organizations as they gear themselves up for the entry of these young professionals and young students into the professional space. We've fast run out of time today, but Mutsabi Nomvete, thank you so much for the time. Head of Technical Marketing at PPS, walking us through the latest Professional Provident Student Confidence Index. It's gone 1:30. We're going to take a quick pause for the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Thank you, Bridget. Good afternoon. I am Utsile Saku with your news headlines. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to announce its interest rate decision shortly in Pretoria. The bank cut rates by 25 basis points at its previous meeting in January. And President Cyril Ramaphosa is keen to see an end to the current diplomatic stalemate between South Africa and the US. That's according to his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, who briefed the media at the Union Buildings in Pretoria this morning. Details at 2:00.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
A lot of folks who've been chatting amongst themselves, just common South Africans, have been wondering whether or not actually the president has a sense of urgency around this American diplomacy issue. Given the fact that there's been so many other folks that have gone speaking on behalf of certain sectors of the country or speaking on behalf of the country. And a lot of people saying that, there just seems to be the measured approach is taking too long. There needs to be a sense of urgency that comes from the president's office about, getting face time to discuss these issues. I know it's a conversation that will continue amongst all of us South Africans for a while to come, until we have some kind of resolve on everything that's transpiring between the US and South Africa. For now, though, we're switching stages, pages, screens, and more. And we're talking Untouched, which is the new millennial zeitgeist. Alison Hendricks joins us now, CEO and Artistic Director of Dance for All South Africa. How are you doing this afternoon, Alison?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? And thank you for having me.
I'm awesome. Thank you very much. So on the 28th of March, Cape Town is going to be treated to Dance for All's new production, Untouched. Firstly, let us just get some background around this production. Does it form part of the greater itinerary for the festival?
Yeah, look at this part of Dance for All's new dance and performance initiative. We wanted to branch out into other aspects for our students who are mainly trained in dancing, but there are so many of them who have other skills. And so this is also the launch of the FA's Dance and Performance Initiative. We work with live music as well, a bit of physical theatre, and everything else that people have not seen our kids do before, I suppose. Yeah, so that's what Untouched is. The concept is mainly about.
I see. Now, under the banner of Untouched, it's a one day only in Cape Town, from what I understand. But there's a lot that's coming under the banner of this particular initiative.
Yeah, we are working with the South African College of Music. We were fortunate enough to get them on board, some really awesome musicians there. We've also brought on board Adele Blank, who is director of the professional company, which was stopped in 2009, of course, mainly due to funding. And now we have revived our professional arm again, and we really wanted to bring Adele back to bring a new work. She's awesome with her work. And so that is another biggie. And then, of course, we have some other up-and-coming choreographers who is part of our DFA's choreographic initiative. Philosanda Majakela has a work called Adulting, which is very much connected to the concept of the millennials and them having a voice and speaking and finding different ways to, have a voice and say what they want to say without wording and using the medium of performing arts. So, the entire collab of young people was very important, which is why we brought on the College of Music, and also the fact that we can showcase our choreographic initiative and our youth company. So, it's a lot of youth, but they are the future. So that is what we do, and that we showcase as much as we can, and we try to take them into the future for when we are not around anymore.
Absolutely. And the truth, the honest truth of it is that, dance has kind of been missing ever since the likes of Dance Umbrella unfortunately shut down. We've been missing that focused, deliberate element of dance within the creative sectors.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're mentioning that, because also in Cape Town we used to have the Baxter Dance Festival, which was the biggest platform for dance organizations and companies to get together. It was very similar to the Dance Umbrella, but it was here in Cape Town. And so since then, we've never had a dance festival again, although we have a lot of dance happening, especially in March this year. There's so many dance productions going on, but there's not one umbrella. And hopefully DFA will be able to do that. We would love to be able to host that because everyone is familiar with Dance for All. We work with very many of the organizations. So it is something that we have tried to do before, applied for. These things cost money. And so we will be able to have the application and be successful. That is where everybody have a home, where they can work with other organizations, where they can collaborate, where they can do workshops, with conferences, everything. So, but I don't want to get on the topic of Untouched. I just get excited when I speak about the idea of a festival, and it's because you mentioned it now, and I'm glad you're highlighting that, because the dance is not always highlighted. it is very often seen like lower than the actors or the musicians. And so it's tough for the dance industry to stay afloat. But, you know, they've got to keep going. They've got to find other means. For us, we are an organization that works predominantly with young people, so it's even harder. We cannot always fill our seats because people do not want to watch kids. So the FA's always got to stay ahead and try to keep things at a certain standard so that people actually want to go out and see. So it's not easy for young people, first of all, and it's not easy for dance organizations. But we have to keep doing the work because dance was there way before all the COVID challenges and way before everything else. And it's going to stay around for a long time. So that's why we need to just keep doing what we have to do.
Absolutely. So Untouched is on the 28th of March. One night only, one day only in Cape Town.
Yeah. And hopefully next year again. We've applied for some new venues next year, and hopefully it will appeal to the audience and we will be able to bring it back. So it is at the Nasdaq venue. Tickets are available at Cricket. At not very many seats, so it is, I suppose, a quick jump. Go for it, get your tickets, and come and enjoy the evening. It's a lovely venue, and we're hoping to have our funders will obviously be there, but we're hoping to have some more business people on board who will also buy into it.
Wonderful stuff. Alison Hendricks, we've run out of time, but we appreciate yours. Cricket is where you can go if you find yourself in Cape Town. The NASDAQ rooftop venue is going to be playing host to Dance for All's, their very new initiative, which is Untouched. And this incorporates dance and, of course, performance, bringing in elements of music and physical theatre as well into some of the pieces that are going to be showcased. Then, of course, a huge focus on the younger talents in dance. And you know, the Gregories and the Dadas didn't become the Gregories and the Dadas overnight. They too started off as young prodigies with incredible talent, and all they needed was audiences and of course the necessary support to ensure that they went on to greatness. So if you are going to be in Cape Town, Cricket is where you can go to get those tickets and experience a fabulous night out. 2 o'clock, we're going to take a break, and then we come back and we catch up with the folks from Masakane who are advocating for mental wellness as a human right. And this is going to be part and parcel of the Human Rights Festival being hosted at Constitution Hill.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Portfolio Committee on Premier and Finance will embark on public hearings throughout the province on the Northwest Appropriation Bill 2025 on the 26th March 2025 in Ngakamudiri Mulema District at Delareyville Municipal Hall in Delarey, in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District at Tihani Community Hall in Tihani, in Dr. Ruth Sohomotsi Mumbadi District at Bonabona Community Hall in Bonabona, in Bojanala District, Breds White Hall in Breds. All hearings start at 10.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Sheila Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Sundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Gerika. Rhythm of Africa with Sheila Ndikumana. This is SAFM. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
In case you are just popping into your car or you're thinking you're running late, it's just gone 20 to 2 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversations that move the nation. We're going to get into a different kind of conversation now, looking at Masakane, who are advocating for mental health wellness as a human right. And they are taking to the platform at the Constitution Hills Human Rights Festival 2025 to emphasize their message around mental wellness as a fundamental human right. We've got Uphumelela Mbuto joining us now, who's with Masakane. How are you doing this afternoon?
Hi, I'm good, and you, Bridget?
I'm awesome, thank you. We always like to firstly get some background on the organization Masakane in this instance.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Uphumelela Mbuto, and I'm a representative of Masakane NPC. Masakane is a movement formed by young people dedicated to destigmatizing mental health, especially in the entertainment industry and just other high-pressure areas and spaces. Our work just focuses on practical solutions that will help creatives, artists, especially young people, build and navigate the industry within mental health wellness. So I think that because we are a solution-based driven initiative, we don't just raise awareness, we create actionable programs to support mental health through workshops, mentorship programs, and community engagement, where we help the artists and just individuals understand mental health and just understanding that it's just as important as physical health. And just some of the work that we've done, just to conclude the talk, is the Switch program, which helps artists and young professionals reframe their mental health and their struggle. Workshops, interactive seminars, and panel discussions where we collaborate with like-minded entities within mental health professionals, musicians, and industry leaders who can help us open that conversation about mental health in their expertise. And then we also do school and community activations where we use games and other interactive storytelling to teach young people on mental wellness and stress management. So, yeah.
Definitely important work, Phumelela, that yourself and the team undertake. And I think, doing a great service, particularly to the entertainment industry. A lot of people not fully understanding the unique pressures and challenges that come with being an entertainer, being a creative, in this time. Just last week we heard of the passing of Ebenezer Dibakwana, who was a very young comedian and had what, if from our perception, the world at his feet. But this is someone who struggled and almost quite openly with mental health. And he's one of a few that we know now who've passed on by death, by suicide.
Yeah. No, that's very true, and it's quite sad. I actually just want to share a personal experience that the other day I was just having a really rough time. In fact, the whole week was mentally exhausting. But every morning I have this routine where I have to wake up and I have to work out. And on days when my energy is really low and I feel drained, there's really one thing that carried me, which was music. So it's either a specific artist or a specific song that just pushes me past my limit. That just mentally makes me feel like not giving up and make me feel like I can keep going. I finish my session and I feel that dopamine, that relief that reminds me that no, that struggle was worth it. And after that session, I realized, and I thought about the artists who made the music, who made the magic that carried me through my tough moment. Yeah. What happens when they are the ones who are struggling? Who carries them? Who ensures that their mental health is supported? So that they can keep creating and making the music, the art, the stories that keep us going on days when we feel like we can't get out of bed. And that is why Masakane exists. We want to make sure that those same artists who give so much of themselves, have the tools and the support to take care of their mental health through our programs that I've mentioned, where we want to create spaces where artists can talk, heal, and just develop resilience, because we don't support their mind. We don't support the minds behind the music. So we don't want to keep losing these brilliant artists, entertainers, and comedians, as you said. So yeah, it's quite challenging, but yeah.
Challenging but necessary work indeed, and I guess perhaps the promising aspect of this very heavy social conversation and social burden is that we are seeing more and more younger creatives and artists be brave in sharing their journey, be brave in trying to bring us into the struggles that they're having with their mental health, which I think is something that previous generations of artists and creatives really didn't open up that freely or even just share with anybody in the slightest ways. But now we pay attention and we are able to see and hear that person is sharing their struggles with us.
No, and I think just to add on to what you've said, it's very important to talk about mental health in the creative spaces because creativity thrives on emotional well-being. So if an artist is struggling mentally, because the artist has to essentially give themselves, it impacts their ability to create, to perform, and to express themselves to their fullest. And the industry has just glorified the idea that pain makes great art, but at what cost? We need to normalize conversations about mental health so that the creative space feels safe for them to even seek help without being scared or embarrassed or losing certain opportunities. Because mentally healthy industry is rather sustainable. It's an industry where artists don't have to suffer in silence in order to succeed.
Absolutely. So part of the program for the festival at Constitution Hill this year for the Human Rights Festival obviously involves Masakhane coming through as an organization just to emphasize mental health as being, and mental wellness rather, as being a fundamental human right. Talk to us about what you've got planned for the day.
Sure. So Masakhane is first of all honored to be part of the Constitutional Hill Human Rights Festival. We'll be advocating for, as you said, mental health as a human right. And one of our key objectives are breaking the stigma, which is changing the perspective of mental health being seen as a sign of weakness. Industry responsibilities, that's just highlighting how production companies, managers, and media platforms can create a healthier work environment for the artists, and empowering individuals. Those are just some of the key objectives that we had. So this conversation basically just came about when we realized that mental wellness isn't a personal struggle, it's more of a systemic issue. And if the industry doesn't prioritize it, then we'll keep losing the brilliant artists. So at the festival, we won't just be talking, but we're taking action. We want to create or use the platform to work on, where we can all work on real solutions that the industry can implement to make sure the artists don't suffer. Because as in Masakhane, we're not saying we have the solution. But if we come together and provide that platform where we can all share what has helped us, maybe we can come up with a better solution that the industry could use.
Absolutely. Phumelela, we appreciate you and the work that you do, and thank you so much for being in conversation with us. That was Phumelela Mbuto, who is with Masakhane, and of course they are forming part of all of those festivities that are happening at Constitution Hill as part of the Human Rights Festival. It's 10 to 2 o'clock, time for us to take a quick breather, and then we'll come back and we'll catch up with a creative. Zoe Mudicha is going to be in conversation with us, and we're talking the NSA Jazz and Pop Ensembles in concert.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Second place, Betopo Clay, and number one on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points.
This is the top 14. Rugby
the French way. Catch the big clash of giants between Bordeaux Union Peclair and Stade Rouen on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Who will rise in the Hollywood Bets Pro Series, where the top 8 women's cricket teams face off against each other to lift the inaugural Hollywood Bets Pro 50 and Pro 20 trophies? Local pride is at stake with the log table taking shape. Waza nawe. Get down to a stadium near you and show your support. Visit cricket.co.za for more information. Entrance to Hollywood Bets Pro Series matches is free.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
So the National School of the Arts is not playing around with this jazz and pop ensembles in concert, because not only are they gathering some of their internationally renowned alumni, the likes of Samson Diamond coming through, as well as inviting the likes of Clive Matibe to come and creative direct. They've got the phenomenal winning singer-songwriter and NSA alumni herself, Zoe Modiga, also headlining the concert. How are you doing?
I'm so fantastic. I'm excited. I was literally 4 minutes ago doing fittings for it. So, I'm happy to be talking to you today.
You are bringing the full-on Zoe Modiga. You are like, this is what it's like once you graduate and become professional.
You know, it's so funny because people have come to know me for having something to share in terms of the visual story on stage. And it's one of the things that I really think I got from the National School of the Arts, because not only was I a classically trained clarinetist and pianist and vocalist, but we were also exposed to doing school productions and musicals, you know, the likes of Footloose, Sarafina, and an adaptation of, what is this musical? It now escapes my mind, but it is like all that jazz kind of musical. So knowing that they are such a big part of why I take presenting myself seriously is such a beautiful thing. It feels like a full circle moment to be able to dress up for them.
It absolutely is. And I learned something new today, that you're also classically trained in the clarinet. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Let's talk about this evening, because this is the second edition of the Pop and Jazz Ensemble in concert, and it's quite a big deal. It's not a small production. This production is featuring, you know, internationally, domestically acclaimed alumni of the school, as well as some really powerhouse guests to come through and support the students that are going to be forming part of it.
Absolutely. I think for me, the when it comes to the National School of the Arts as a school, it really does have a reputation and a prestige that walks in front of it, you know. And I think what speaks to it is the incredible learners who had the opportunity to go and study there. There's so many in the industry, in different sectors of the industry, who are really kingpins in what it is that they do. So it's so beautiful for us to be able to have gone on stages in the country, in the continent, and even in the world, but to know that this is one of the most special stages that we are coming back to, because it's a part of our formative years. It's the memory that really doesn't wash away. So for me, any opportunity to go back to my high school is really significant and meaningful. And I'm excited, really more than anything, to champion the students, because I remember being younger and the likes of Bridget Masinga visited us and would pour back to us. So to see myself in that way, it makes me chuckle a little bit, because it makes no sense to me. But I know that there is value in just championing young students as social scientists, because that's what the art world is. We're there to tell people stories, and I think it's a beautiful thing to invest in. So I'm really honored to be back. And at my second home, I would say.
Absolutely. And you accompanied by the NSA band. How has that been, you know, rehearsing with the school band and the orchestra as well as the choir?
So we're actually going to be rehearsing just a few days before the show.
Okay.
It's something that I'm really looking forward to. There's going to be choir, a band, orchestra, all of the things that I fell in love with as a student there. So I'm so excited to just take in the talent. I've had the honor of being a mentor several times visiting the school, but this is actually the first time sharing the stage with the young talent. So I'm excited, and we're happy to be doing it at the Joburg Theatre as well, which has also been a home for me.
Absolutely. Zoe, looking forward to the sun, and we'll have a far lengthier catch-up as the year unfolds. That was Zoe Modiga, multi-award-winning singer-songwriter, and of course the NSA alumni. She's returning to the National School of the Arts on the invite of the music department, and they're presenting the second edition of the Pop and Jazz Ensemble in concert. You definitely don't want to miss it, featuring the NSA band, orchestra, and the full choir. It's going to be a phenomenal night indeed. It's fast approaching 2 o'clock. We're going to take a commercial break, and then we're going to get into the top of the hour news with Utsile. And then on the other side of that, we'll come back and we'll continue with the show. How to take the guilty out of life's guilty pleasures is the question after 2.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
Tulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
How disruptive is this expulsion of Ambassador Rasool going to be in that effort to try and reset the relationship, as you call it, between the two countries?
It's a temporary bumpy patch that we think we will go through fairly soon. There were engagements that he was having at various levels with the Trump administration. We'll be able to reset those engagements and move forward. What is important here is for us to remain steadfast in terms of acting in line with our foreign policy position, that we seek to maintain positive relations with all countries in the world.
That's Vincent Magwenya, who speaks on behalf of the presidency.
This is SAFM.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Top stories at 2 o'clock. A legal setback for the ANC, and Reserve Bank expected to keep interest rates on hold. Good afternoon. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. The appellants contended that the interim provincial committee had convened the conference after its term of office had expired. It also said that the ANC's National Executive Committee, which had assumed the control of the conference, had violated the party's constitution. President Cyril Ramaphosa is keen to see an end to the current diplomatic stalemate between South Africa and the US. That's according to his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, who briefed the media at the Union Buildings in Pretoria this morning. Magwenya's statement follows America's expulsion of South Africa's ambassador to the country, Ibrahim Rasool. This after Rasool accused US President Donald Trump of leading a global white supremacist movement. Magwenya says the president will not send a delegation to the US to explain South Africa's policy on land.
What we will do, as I've just done now, is to continue correcting distortions where those distortions are being reported from an official level out of the United States. Parallel to that, As I've said, the President is leading that intensification of engagements with the Trump administration to ensure that we are able to engage at the right level and we are able to iron out whatever differences that may exist. But yes, it is a concern that the state of the relationship is where it is, and it is a focus of the President to work towards improving the state of the relationship.
The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to announce its interest rate decision this afternoon. The bank cut rates by 25 basis points at its previous meeting in January. This took the repo rate to 7.5% and the prime lending rate to 11%. A low inflationary environment has been the main reason for the past 3 consecutive rate cuts. The rate has remained within the bank's 3 to 6% target range. Laura Campbell, an analyst at ETM Analytics, says while inflation remains low at 3.2%, the bank's decision will be based on both domestic and international risks.
Expect that interest rates will be kept unchanged. Trump's policies and retaliation by other countries is likely to keep inflation globally elevated. And the Reserve Bank will also keep a close eye on interest rate decisions made by the US Fed. The Reserve Bank will want to maintain an attractive interest rate differential with the US to keep rand investments relatively attractive. So overall, if we take these factors into account, it's likely that the Reserve Bank will opt to keep interest rates unchanged.
Several provinces affected by stock theft are meeting in Kopananogeng Country Lodge in Bloemfontein in the Free State to discuss the challenges that farmers encounter and to come up with possible solutions. National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola says the gathering is important to exchange ideas to fight stock theft in the country. The meeting is being attended by role players from government and farmers from the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal and the Northern Cape. And finally, further afield, at least 70 Palestinians have been killed and dozens others wounded in Israeli airstrikes across Gaza. Medical authorities say that the strikes targeted several houses in northern and southern areas of the Gaza Strip. There's no immediate comment from Israel on the attacks. Bonolo Maribe reports.
This comes as more than 510 Palestinians have been killed due to airstrikes since Tuesday. Israel says its airstrikes were targeted towards Hamas commanders and has threatened to continue the attacks if the Palestinian group are not removed from power. Meanwhile, a Hamas official says that mediators have been stepping up their efforts to accommodate both sides, but no breakthrough has been made as of yet. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Recapping the top story, the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. For SAFM News, I am Utsile Saku. Headlines at 2:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.6 FM in Bloemfontein.
Stangusen Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle.
Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier.
Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Second place, Bedope and number 1 on the lot, Toulouse, are battling it out in the top of the table clash. They both believe they deserve maximum points.
This is the top 14. Rugby the French way.
Catch the big clash of giants between Bordeaux Union Peclair and Stade Terouanne on Sunday, 23 March at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It is the incomparable Sipho Gumede coming through. When days are dark, finish the sentence. Friends of you. We don't hear those anymore. Babetini, what do they call those again? Are they idioms? Nah? I'm sure someone is going to WhatsApp me. When days are dark, friends are few. The previous generation, the boomers, love that saying. The boomers, like my camera operator in here today, it's like their favorite saying. When days are dark, friends are few. They love it. The old toppies, they love it. That is how we enter the second hour of the show. Sipho Gumete coming through with that incredible offering. We're going to be talking how to take the guilty out of life's guilty pleasures. Interesting, right? How do we take the guilty out of life's guilty pleasures? Because I think a lot of us find ourselves in situations from time to time, now and again, every so often, where we blow our money on things that aren't really necessities. It's not the needs, but it's the wants. And we find all kinds of ways to justify it. I've had a bad day. I've had a long week. My boss has given me grief today. The kids are getting on my nerves. And you find all the tiny little excuses to self-reward. But how does rewarding yourself in something that innately feels so good to do for yourself ultimately also feels like such a guilty thing to do? And what does all of that speak to? So we are going to be catching up with Mapalo Maku, who is a personal finance expert, talking us through this. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm very well, thanks. And yourself, Bridget? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for carving out time for us. I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. I've been known to fall into this category of people who will find any and every excuse to reward myself for the slightest thing.
For the slightest inconvenience of life. And I like how you put it, right? That, the kids are a little bit on your nerves, work is hectic, and all of these things, Bridget, link to our emotional state, don't they? Right? So I think the question we should be asking ourselves when it comes to money is, what is my approach to money when it comes to my emotional state? How do I approach money in my different emotions? Either anger, happiness, either sadness. So that's actually where we should be going for us to be able to work with our money or do better with our money, to realize what are our triggers, right? When you are happy, what do you normally do? Ask yourself that. When you are angry, what do you normally do? When you are frustrated, what do you normally do? Write it down on a piece of paper and say, next time I feel these emotions, because there's something that is very powerful in writing things down so that you are aware of them, so that next time that emotion comes through, you're able to take a step back and say, okay, I know this is how I'm feeling, and normally this is how I react. And a few days later, I regret either this purchase or this decision or this act that I have done. So what is it that I'm going to do differently going forward? But it all starts with self-knowledge.
That's a very loaded question. What is my approach when it comes to my emotional state as it relates to money? Because I can only speak from my experience, and I can only say good, bad, and the ugly, frustrated, sad, and happy. I know the geolocation to Santon City.
And then maybe perhaps, Bridget, you must ask yourself, what is it about shopping that satisfies all those areas, all those emotions? What is it about consuming more that I feel gives me joy? So it gives you joy when you're sad, it gives you joy when you're happy, in a celebratory mood, right?
Yeah.
So what is it about consuming, getting something that makes me happy? Can you replace that very same emotion with something else? Would perhaps a hike. I know that's a long shot. If you live in Joburg, it's not quite as easy to just go for a hike, But really just start thinking about your life and saying, what would make me happy outside of shopping? I think that's one of the first questions that you should be asking yourself, because truly our emotions play such a massive role. And I hate it when personal finance experts say, "Oh, don't take money, don't take your emotions into money," and yet so much of our decisions is based on our emotions.
Absolutely. I would even venture to say all of our decisions are somehow linked to emotion. But the problem here, when you start asking us, how do we take the guilty out of these life's little guilty pleasures, is that, all joking aside, impulse spending can actually have a real detrimental effect on a household's finances and a household's budgets when left unchecked.
No, 100%, 100%, Bridget. So I think we have to be practical. Yes, look at your emotions, but at the end of the day, you have to be practical. And for me, one of the things that I love saying to people, I did a webinar yesterday, just saying, okay, we can talk about debt. We can talk about all of these things that are derailing us from our financial goals. But then what is your goal? And oftentimes I've seen that people look at, oh, my career goals is this. I want to reach whatever this year. I want to study. But when you talk about the finer detail around personal finance, around money, and you say, what do you want your net worth to be this year? Most of the time people don't know, right? So my question always starts with, what is your goal? What is your net worth? And how do you want it to improve? So that when you want to make those impulsive decisions, you look at your net worth, where it's sitting today, and you look at where you want it to be, and you say, does this decision align with the goal, with the net worth that I want to have by the end of the year or not? Then another thing to consider, Bridget, is saying, okay, I know I'm myself. I'm a very impulsive person. So one of the things I tell my community, my clients, is make room for your investment. So pay yourself first. So you know that you get paid on the 25th. You know that you get paid on the 30th or the 1st, whatever date that is. On that date, look at your savings goal and your investments goal. Put aside money and make sure that you have a debit order going off for that specific thing. So that if and when, more like when it does happen that you do impulsive purchases, that you know that you have perhaps your retirement annuity going off, that you have your tax-free savings account going off, that even though you do get this impulses to celebrate or cry, but you know that definitely you have something going on. You have automated these very important things that are going to be helpful in your future. And also, I think sometimes we forget that your future self will thank you for these very same things, because you want to keep, number one, your purchasing power, but also you still want to enjoy life when you are a bit older.
Absolutely. And we're going to take a quick one, and we'll come back and we'll talk about that balancing. How do we balance the scales? That's a fundamental principle. I think the first time I heard that principle must have been in high school with Susie Osmond, talking about pay yourself first before any and everything. Of course, in high school, I thought she meant, tuck shop money. And then I realized that she meant, no. Pay yourself, your future self, by way of investments. 2:20 is coming up. The break is coming up, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Tshwane University of Technology ladies are chasing 3 points. But Copperbelt ladies have a different idea. They want to play great football for the duration of the match to walk away victors. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT ladies versus Copperbelt ladies on Saturday 22 March at 10:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
Why do you think then he said what he said. And I say this because there's been many others who are saying the context of all of this has been this really tug of war between the two countries for the last 3 or 4 weeks or so.
Well, the job of the ambassador is certainly not to get involved in the tug of war. The job of the ambassador is to represent his or her country to the best advantage and to maintain good and friendly relations and to come out and attack the local politics, the head of state and his big MAGA policy. Whether you like it or hate it, the ambassador shouldn't be making statements about that.
Douglas Gibson was the former South African ambassador to Thailand.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Tying the dots of our emotions to our financial spending and perhaps how we are challenged when it comes to prioritizing our finances and the ways we should be thinking. Because I hear you, Mapalo, I hear you when we talk about paying ourselves first, right? It's the responsible thing to do, where you essentially are planning for your future self. You know, and it is really sage and responsible advice. But then you bring up the fact that we also live in the now, and folks want to feel like they're doing the responsible thing on the one hand, but they're also getting to live life now. How do we strike that very delicate balance, you know?
Yeah, no, and it's a very delicate one, considering our economy right now, and now with looking at the fact that there's going to be a 0.5% increase in that, which is going to make everything else so much more expensive for everyone, right? But I think in striking a balance, we touched on automating your savings and investments so that you don't have to think about it, so that you don't have to rely on your discipline.
Yeah.
You know, how many times have you ever said, you know what, whatever money I have left in my account, I'm going to put it away for my savings or investments, and something else pops up, right? So definitely automating our investments, having a debit order on the day that you get paid so that you don't have to think about it is one key way in which you can find or strike a balance. Another thing, Bridget, and I think people take it for granted quite a lot, is that if you are working for an employer who provides a pension or provident fund, is that you have a pension or provident fund and you're already an investor by that virtue. And for every increase, so let's say you have a really good employer and they say you're going to get an increase this year of 10%. Consider going to your human resources. I know.
Who are you working for? Can I work there?
I know. But as an example, so that we break down the numbers a bit easier. So let's say it's even 6%. Go to your employer, go to your HR and say, can I contribute, take 3% of my increase, put it towards my pension or provident fund. In that way, you don't really feel it, and you're not solely relying on your so-called discipline to save those funds. And you know, there's so many tax benefits to that. But again, there's another way which I think you can sort of strike a balance. Finding a good financial planner. And why is that important? Because it brings in accountability. Right, I have seen so many people who, I do work for, and they always say, it was always so easy. These concepts are not new, right? But if you find an accountability partner, someone you're accountable to, imagine every time you want to go buy a pair of shoes, you want to walk down Fenton, and you're thinking about Mapalo in your head. You are thinking about someone from Metropolitan, right? And you're saying, goodness, I have to account to someone. For me, those are some of the things that you can put in place to make sure that you reach your goals, that you find a balance, but still, and Bridget, I have been known in my family, I'm a child of four. We are a family of 4 kids, and I'm the youngest one, and I've been known to be minister of fun, so it's all about striking a balance, and I completely understand that. But on the other hand, I know that money is such a massive, big part of our lives that we have to take care of that part And having an accountability partner, having a financial planner who's credited, for example, with Metropolitan, is one of those ways in which you can achieve your goals but still have fun. And I think people, where we're missing it is that once we start talking about money, personal finance, retirement, that sort of thing, people think, oh goodness, this one must be boring. This one must not want me to have fun. And that is the exact opposite.
Yeah, I like the suggestion and I think probably, some of my listeners took that on board. The suggestion to say, well, if you're getting your annual increment in these times, if you're working for someone who's giving you a 10%, please do tell us where you're working. Taking that sort of difference and then offsetting it and putting it into your provident fund, because that's also almost like a similar thing that banks will always talk about your bond and say that if you get that little bit of an increase, chuck in another extra 100 or 200 into your bond. Or if you can keep it where it was last year, whenever the rates decrease, just keep it steady there, and you'd be amazed at the amount of money you save down the line, and in this case, for yourself to enjoy in your provident fund.
Spot on. I mean, we're getting the results right now. I'm not sure if they are out here. The NPC is meeting, and we're going to find out if we're getting an interest rate increase or it's going to stay the same or go lower. And exactly to your point, if that goes lower, now it means that you have a little bit of a saving. Always think about that bit of saving. Where can it go towards my future? Where can it go to making sure that I pay off my debt a bit quicker? Pick up the phone call your bank, call your financial advisor and say, keep it the same, or perhaps increase this area, perhaps a retirement annuity, making sure that you are reaching, or perhaps you're actually fast-tracking your goals.
Very, very good advice indeed. And with everything that Mapalo has said, we can strike a balance. There's no need for us to feel bad about having a life and enjoying that life while we still live, for as long as we are also responsible and we forward thinking and we plan and we do the thing. And most importantly, I think, stick to the plan.
Stick to the plan.
I love it. Mapalo, thank you so much for the time today. That was Mapalo Maku, who's a personal finance expert. I hope you did get some advice. I hope you do. If at very least by the end of 2025, we get an email with my team saying that 5 people listened to some of the financial advice that we have been dishing out since December and have done the right thing, ourselves included, then I think it would be job well accomplished, because just changing 5 habits would be job well accomplished. Life is very expensive. It is. Did I tell you that today is International Day of Happiness, by the way? I'll tell you where we rank there. And hopefully we'll still be happy by the time the governor of the Reserve Bank takes to the podium today and shouts at us. He's always shouting. So hopefully we'll still be happy at that time when he comes through. But I think we're going to have some decent news because, all the financial experts and analysts have been saying that for all intents and purposes, the repo rates should stay the same. But don't hold us on that, because those 5 folks who count there or who vote and count in that vote can do amazing things at times that surprise us. But hopefully we'll still be smiling and we'll still be happy by the time we wrap up the show. Utsile standing by with the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. Good afternoon. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. The National Prosecuting Authority says it's ready for the trial of Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, daughter of former President Jacob Zuma. Zuma Sambudla appeared briefly in the Durban High Court on charges of inciting terrorism and public violence during the 2021 unrest. And the Israeli army has warned Palestinians to avoid Gaza's main corridor. It says troops have now been deployed up to the middle of the Netzarim corridor, which divides the north and south of Gaza. Details at 3 o'clock.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM. FM in Mokopane. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Side by Side.
Good afternoon and welcome to Side by Side. This is a feature where we celebrate you, the most important person in your child's life. We do understand that raising children comes with many challenges, but you're not alone. We're here to support you by giving you expert advice, helpful insights, and plenty of encouragement along the way. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Today, we're talking about the magic of storytelling and its incredible benefit for children's development. Stories do more than just entertain. They help children learn, spark their imaginations, and strengthen their language skills. On our drama episode just yesterday, we heard how Joyce encouraged Lerato to tell a story to the kids, and showing just how powerful storytelling can be in shaping young minds. Well, to help us explore this topic further, we are joined by Ms. Lebu Mokgohlwa, an occupational therapy technician from Steve Biko Academic Hospital. Together, we'll dive into the world of storytelling, its impact on children's learning, and how parents and caregivers can bring stories to life at home. Ms. Mokgohlwa, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. What are the benefits of storytelling for children's development?
Thank you for the opportunity, and good day to the listeners and the caregivers. I'd like to also acknowledge Steve Beaker, OT department. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm a therapist who's been in the field for over a decade, and today I'm excited to share tips and benefits of storytelling. Stories are a powerful tool for teaching children about the world around them. And research confirms that from as early as 25 weeks of pregnancy, an unborn baby not only recognizes your voice, but the rhythm of a story or a song that can be sung to them. And it also builds a foundation for literacy and language development. It stimulates an interest of sound and helps them develop listening skills. So the list goes on and on and on, which includes encouraging them to be as curious. And when you present them with new stories, it opens exploration of characters or problems that require exploration. It also sparks and prompts them to ask you a lot of questions. It stimulates imagination and it helps them develop creativity by allowing children to imagine scenarios beyond their experience. By this imaginative thinking, it is the key to problem solving and innovation, as it trains the brain to think outside the box.
So, is reading the only way to share stories with children?
Reading cannot be the only way to help with children's language literacy development. Oral storytelling can be very engaging and shape their narrative. Puppetry or stuffed animals, they can be used to bring characters to life in a very fun and interactive way, where you have your child's attention even longer and their concentration span might be even long. And we can also use play, like use their toys and dolls, have them formulate their own stories or action figures and foster their creative imagination. Or we can also use interactive media by the use of storytelling apps, audiobooks, engaging through sound, visuals, and also animation. Another thing that we can use is music and song, theater and drama, where we act out stories like a simple role play and bring the stories to life, or use short films, or we can also make use of videos that are designed for children.
Now, how can parents successfully incorporate storytelling into their child's daily routine?
Great question. As parents or caregivers, you can effectively incorporate storytelling using these following tips. Firstly, make it a habit. You need to establish a regular storytelling time. You can try bedtime stories, or you can even make up stories, like encourage the child to even come up with the story on the spot. you'll be surprised what aspirations they can come up with, including using their toys and trying to bring them to life. You need to be expressive and use different voices, facial expressions, and gestures to bring that particular story to life. You can also utilize books, and you can use oral stories, and sometimes connect items or lessons from stories to real life situations. I'll give you an example now. A story of how rock hyrax or a dasi or impila or pila has lost its tail because he had sent other animals to go fetch it for him. In real life story, it's got nothing to do with the rock hyrax not having a tail. It's about not relying on other people to get things done for you. Nobody's going to come and save you. You need to reach life goals and dreams. You need to do it yourself and be self-reliant. This will help children apply what they learn and see the relevance of stories in their own lives.
Ms. Mokhutlwa, and when is the best time to read, sing, and share stories with children?
Best time that we can share stories with our kids could be bath time, potty time, bedtime, even on the train or on the bus. I guess this is where wheels on the bus go round and round was invented. In the park, in the car, in the pram, in the court, when you're visiting the doctor and you are awaiting service, anytime is a good time for a story. You can also use prompts if you can't make up a story at times. You can ask your child, what if animals could talk? What will happen if your favorite toy came to life? And you will see their faces light up. Change roles sometimes. Ask them, if you were my daddy or mommy, how would you treat me? Own life stories can also come to play. You can tell them to use their creative narrative and hear what stories they come up with. You can share letters, wits, and pictures also by using magazines or your childhood memory, right? So for me, when you page through, we used to claim nice house or a nice meal, and we will act it out and say, so delicious, imagining that you're actually having the right meal. Anytime is really a good time to share a story with your child.
Thank you for joining us today. Any closing words?
Thank you for having me. My closing words would be that let's continue sharing stories. We can read, sing, and tell stories to children in whatever language you feel most comfortable speaking. When you use a language that you're most comfortable in, it will help you communicate more easily. Also, it helps to make reading, singing, and storytelling more fun for you and your child. Your child will still learn that words are made up of different letters, syllables, and sounds, and that words usually link to the pictures on the page of the books that we always read to them. If you speak languages other than English at home, but want to introduce your child to reading in English, you can look for dual language books. Or you could read a book aloud in English or listen to an audiobook in English. Then talk about the story with your child in whatever language you feel most comfortable. In pediatric OT department, we see every child's journey as a story of growth, resilience, and possibility. Through play, creativity, storytelling, and meaningful activities, we help children develop skills that they need to participate in everyday life. At Steve Biko, we are committed to helping little hands do big things. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to Side by Side, the show that supports you to give your child the best possible start in life. Brought to you by the National Department of Health, Ilifa la Bantwana, and the SABC Education. Join the conversation with other caregivers on our Facebook page at Side by Side SA and look out for more great content. Join us again, same time next week when we'll be talking about oral health care for young children.
Side by Side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Over the last 50 years, one man has played an unparalleled part in transforming British society. This man is Rupert Murdoch. Feared by politicians, Murdoch has built the biggest media operation on the planet. His empire has given him extraordinary power and influence. The rise of the Murdoch family is an electrifying study of the Murdoch dynasty, charting the ups and downs of an empire. From the ambition that fueled its success, to the criminality that led to the closure of the News of the World and the Leveson Inquiry. This is The Rise of the Murdoch Family. Thursdays at 10 p.m. starts 13 February, only on S3.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points. But Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
We are gearing up to
Ashraf Garda.
We're gearing up to wrap up the show. It happens. We sometimes get gremlins in the system. We are gearing up to wrap up the show, and we're going to wrap up a little bit earlier today, right? Because we are waiting for that announcement from the Reserve Bank and as far as what's going on. Are the repo rates holding? Are they dropping? Hopefully we're not getting any weird upset, because I think our hearts cannot take any weird upsets at the moment. It's International Day of Happiness, and it's celebrated on the 20th of March, and we know that it's a day that aims to promote happiness as a key factor in leading a far more healthy and disease-free life. So get this, Finland somehow continues to hold the top spot here. They continue to come out at the very top for the last 8 years. So for 8 consecutive years, Finland is the happiest country in the world. I don't know how they get it right, but they do get it right. And it'd be interesting to also observe, perhaps what they do, how they do it, how have they constructed themselves socially. What are their priorities in as far as their societies and communities, and maybe there'd be some lessons there as well. Of course, given that it's a completely different environment economically, politically, but there's always something to be learned. I'm not surprised at the fact that the USA has dropped significantly in the rankings here of the international happiness, or for the International Day of Happiness. They've dropped significantly alongside China. And part and parcel of the drops is that they've recorded some of the highest numbers when it comes to death by suicide. Which is always an indicator that your society is struggling, your society is working through some things psychologically and emotionally, right? So So I'm not surprised, particularly with the US. Kuningi, yeah, that is going on over there. So, yeah, we are, where are we? Number 83, I think, if I recall correctly. We are number 83 in that index of happiness. So we're still a tiny bit happy. It depends who you're asking on which day. Top 10 countries, by the way, of happiness, by way of order. So Finland, number 1, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden, Netherlands. Do you see the pattern there? All the Scandinavian countries. Costa Rica, Norway, Israel, Luxembourg, and Mexico making up that bottom half of that top 10 list. Yeah, very interesting. And I like all the Scandi countries because they have lovely mother-child healthcare and maternity consciousness. One of them actually pays you for 6 months to go on maternity for up to 6 months. I can't remember which one it is. I think it could be Denmark, if I'm not mistaken. You can take maternity for up to 6 months, paid maternity. It's Denmark, ne? Yes. They've got some really, really cool considerations for mother and children in those Scandi countries. Let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back.
SAFM Music. Good times, good memories.
I'm just lighting somebody's fire.
Old school sounding so good. SAFM Music with you wherever you go.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
On the 1st of July 2022, the President of the Republic of South Africa signed the National Forest Amendment Act 2022, Act number 1 of 2022, the Amendment Act into law. The President has now proclaimed the Amendment Act and determined its commencement date as the 4th of December 2024. The Minister has also published amendment regulations which seeks to give effect to certain sections of the Amendment Act. A copy of the proclamation notice and the amendment regulations can be accessed on the following websites: www.dffe.gov.za/legislation/gazetted notices or www.gpwonline.gov.za. Any communication or media inquiries in connection with the publication can be directed to Mr. Peter Mbelengwa, Chief Director of Communication and Advocacy. The telephone number is 012-399-8842 or the cell phone number 082-611-8197 or email pmbelengwa@dffe.gov.za.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Living your best life on the Full Circle.
We actually wanted to wrap up the show by just touching base with Siri because they're supporting renaming of De Beer Street in Braamfontein in honor of Umthokozisi Mtumba. Remember Umthokozisi Mtumba, he passed on when he was shot in that fatal situation with the police, right? So it was during Fees Must Fall, during the Fees Must Fall protest here in Braamfontein in Johannesburg, and he just happened to be walking out, having come from the doctor, and he was shot and killed during those protests. And CCV footage actually showed that it was gunfire that came off the hands of SAPS at the time. And they were firing indiscriminately rubber bullets at students when he was shot coming out of those doctors' rooms. So there is now a call and a campaign, and it started many years ago after that incident to have De Beer Street named after him in honor of him, Umthokozisi Mtumba. Personally, I think it would be a great idea. It would be a great honor to him, to his memory, to his family. And also, we always have the conversation around naming streets or renaming streets and landmarks after contentious political figures, right? Because someone else's hero could be someone else's villain. And the suggestion always comes out that perhaps streets should be named or renamed after ordinary people who've made the ultimate sacrifice, or they should be named after people who've made a lifetime contribution. So whether you're talking about Mthokozisi Mtumba, who on that day didn't go out to be part of any protest, he was just living his life as an ordinary South African, happened to be caught in the midst of this national movement that was happening, and ultimately paid the ultimate sacrifice on that day. And people like artists as well, creatives, there's often been calls from certain organizations that we need to have more streets and buildings and institutions that honor the creative voices of our country for their contribution to liberation movements, but for their contribution also to the artistic sectors. And perhaps these would be less polarizing. These would be less divisive if we took more effort to honor such people that are quote unquote neutral in how they've lived their life and how they've contributed and how they've plowed back into the country. So it would be interesting to know how this develops. 10th of March, which just went, marked 4 years since the passing of Umthokozisi. And that call is out there for public support. It is out there for public participation. And Siri is encouraging members of the public to show their support for the renaming of the street by taking part in that public participation process. And it's going to end on the 31st of March, 2025. And you can send through your submissions. You can email them to Dominica M at joburg.org.za. That's Dominica M at joburg.org.za, or Kopano Mo at joburg.org.za, Kopano Mo at joburg.org.za, if you want to be in support and share your views and your perspective around what should happen to De Beer Street and potentially renaming it, right? And this is an ongoing conversation because we're going to be having these kinds of conversations for a while, where we're re-looking at common spaces and re-looking at landmarks and roads and seeing how do we redress and address our history and the things that we need to consider. So, there'll be some names that we agree on, and then there'll be some names that we don't agree on. But as long as it's representative, I think that's the other part of the argument, where people have always said that whenever we rename, it's always been representative of stalwarts and liberation heroes and names who have come from a particular movement without taking into consideration a holistic picture. And so this would be the beginning of such, shifting the needle in how we go about renaming names. So De Beer Street is up for potential rename, and you can participate in that process. What is the time? It's almost time for us to make way for the news. The news is coming up now. And then, of course, on the other side of that, we're going to hear what is that announcement coming out from the Reserve Bank. From myself and my team, thank you so much for choosing to be in conversation with us. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
Thanks, Bridget. Top stories. Another legal setback for the ANC and 70 Palestinians killed in Israel since midnight. Good afternoon. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein has dismissed with costs the ANC's appeal, which challenged the legitimacy of the party's Northwest leadership elected in 2022. The appellants contended that the interim provincial committee had convened the conference after its term of office had expired. It also said that the ANC's National Executive Committee, which had assumed the control of the conference, had violated the party's constitution. The National Prosecuting Authority says it's ready for the trial of Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, the daughter of former President Jacob Zuma. Zuma Sambudla appeared briefly in the Durban High Court on charges of inciting terrorism and public violence during the 2021 unrest. The state alleges that she incited and supported violence on her Twitter account to pressure authorities into releasing her father. Zuma Sambudla's legal representatives told the court that they intend making representations to the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamila Batoyi, to drop the charges. NPA spokesperson Mtunzi Maga says they have a strong case against her.
She has to make an independent, informed decision, obviously having examined what is presented to her by the defense and what the prosecution from the DPP's office have presented to her, and make her own decision. She will have to take into account a number of factors, but that decision is hers and can only be reviewed through a judicial review by a court if they are not satisfied with her decision. We have always been ready as the prosecution in the matter.
Taxi operators say they fear for their lives following the deadly shooting incident at a taxi rank in Jeppestown, Johannesburg this morning. 4 people were shot and killed, whilst 3 others were left wounded. Two of the deceased victims were vendors at the rank. This taxi operators, who prefers anonymity for fear of victimization, says taxi-related violence is getting out of control.
This is scary. Even the people who died would not know why they were killed. We are not comfortable here. We don't know who to trust anymore. Once you see a person carrying a gun, it takes you back to today's scene.
Condolences have been pouring in from all sectors of society following the passing of 79-year-old Ashen Trikamji in Durban. He's being hailed as someone who played a prominent role in opening up the legal fraternity to black people, as well as in cultural and religious cycles. Trikamji was the first non-white president of the Association of Law Societies of South Africa. An attorney of more than 50 years, he served as acting judge on several occasions. Trikamji served on several boards and was the president of the South African Hindu Mahasabha at the time of his death. The organization's deputy president is Professor Bridget Masinga.
He was very passionate about seva, always encouraged all members